Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John PERRINE, the Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Indianapolis District. Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. For more information about how you can donate to that cause, visit www.indianasfinest.com. We want to thank all our partners at WIBC Network Indiana for getting us on the radio across the great state of Indiana. We certainly appreciate all the work they do, and hopefully you're listening to us on the radio. But if you're not, if you're seeing us on YouTube, it is thanks to our great friend Tom Trial, who is back. You've missed seeing us. We know it. I've gotten at least 2 emails wondering where we went, right? I mean, both of our fans emailed us. So, but no, thankful to have Tom back, getting us on YouTube, making us look the best that he can.
Absolutely.
And our guests today, these 2 fine-looking gentlemen sitting across from me. You've seen them before, you've heard them before, but they're back. Captain Ron Galvez, Chief PI for the United States Police.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
And Sergeant Scott KEEGAN, newly promoted Public Information Officer for the Pendleton District. So welcome
Good morning.
Back.
Yep.
So good to have you guys here. Here we are in July of 2022, and we've recently had a pretty big law change that got a lot of attention, and that is the permitless carry, or it's commonly referred to as constitutional carry, about carrying a firearm. And so we're not going to dig way into the weeds about what the law is, but we certainly want to talk about responsible gun ownership,
right.
and that's what we want to talk about today, Scott. So let's break it off with somebody right now saying, you know what, I think it's time. I'd like to own a handgun. Where do I start? Where would somebody start if they're just now thinking they've never owned one, they've never handled one, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, and they want to be a gun owner?
Taking an introductory class for firearms, safety-wise, and learning how to use a gun and shoot it is always a good place to start. Again, just basic safety for the handgun is a great way to venture out and finding someone who knows what they're talking about. So finding a class with a reputable instructor would be definitely where I would steer people to go.
Yeah, and one thing that we see that people get hurt is when they start with complacency. They don't understand how dangerous a gun can be, or they think, hey, I'm familiar, I don't need to take any special classes or anything like that. I think there's always room for improvement. Even if you're a seasoned gun owner, certainly taking a class is a huge step. And I know there's classes across the state, private, even some police departments and sheriff's departments are offering classes for the citizens to come and learn gun safety. I know the Boone County Sheriff's Office does a lot of classes for citizens up there. Just safe handling. It's not necessarily, although it will make you a better shooter, it's not always just about becoming a good shooter. It's about learning how to safely handle, store the guns, things like that.
Yeah, the first time I actually ever really handled a firearm and shot and learned all the intricacies of that was in the academy. I'd never really been exposed to firearms. My father wasn't an outdoorsman. I had a friend in college that I remember he bought a Glock handgun one time. He showed it to me, and that was, other than that, that's really the first time I'd ever seen a gun up close. But until I got to the academy, so having guys like Scott, who's one of our department firearms instructors, is teaching all the proper ways to do things, to even break down the firearm, to clean it, to understand how it operates, and to put it back together, so that not only am I building muscle memory, but I'm building good habits rather than going out on my own trying to figure it out and doing things wrong and creating those bad habits that are so hard to get out of people. You know what I mean? So, and as far as room for improvement, yeah, every time I go to the range, we go a couple, 2, 3, 4 times a year. Always learn something new. I always find that I'm not as good as I thought I was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But again, it still takes that practice, not just pulling the trigger and putting bullets down range at a target, but again, the weapon system itself, making sure that is properly maintained. To me, that's one of the most important things, and also the proper and safe, responsible storing of those firearms.
Yeah, and I've learned over my career that shooting a firearm is not like riding a bike. It's a perishable skill. You always hear people say, if you know how to ride a bike, you can go away from it and come back and ride a bike just fine. If you don't shoot a gun regularly, your skills can diminish. And I'm sure you see that, Scott, with people coming to the range that are just a little rusty. They just need to kind of knock some of the dust off and get those skills honed back in. And it's no different for citizens that want to carry a firearm or own one legally. They need to be practicing and understanding how to operate that weapon as well.
Absolutely. And some of the basic techniques that you learn with handling a firearm, you can do at your own home with it unloaded. You can safely manipulate that weapon and practice some skills without any cost of the high-priced ammunition at this time right now. So it's a good way to keep up on those perishable skills.
And what about carrying the firearm? We see, unfortunately, a lot of people that'll just take a firearm and just put it in their waistband. What do you suggest about a holster, securing it? What are kind of some ideas that somebody should be thinking about?
First thing, start off with a proper belt. We need a hard, rigid belt that keeps the firearm close to your body. That allows that holster to stay in a position that is nice and tight to your body. It doesn't flop around and move around as much. So a good belt, a good holster that is made from either a leather or Kydex, something that is firm, that doesn't allow anything to get in and activate the trigger. So the trigger guard is important. So yeah, those are, a belt, a good holster. A lot of people are wanting to know, with the new law, does that cover concealed carry or open carry? So there's pros and cons to both. With Indiana, you can have it concealed, or what we call open carry, where it's out in the open where everybody can see it. I prefer a concealed method, but again, there's pros and cons to both. If you want to learn more about that, you can always ask an instructor. We won't get too deep in the weeds here.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different types of holsters, and when people hear holster, they probably think, police holster, automatically going to be displayed on the outside of their hip. But there's a lot of holsters designed to go inside of your waistband so that the gun can be concealed inside your waistband with your shirt pulled over it, and most people are unaware that you even have a firearm.
Yeah, there's a variety of different options holster-wise. You have ankle holsters, shoulder holsters, concealment in purses for the women who want to carry. We also have things that go in your car to mount them. So you're going into a wide range there.
And we know that if you're in a situation where a firearm is going to be needed and it's a stressful situation, you should be familiar with how your holster operates. So that's something, when you said you can practice, be familiar with how things operate, holsters and clips, and wherever you keep the gun, make sure that you can access it quickly and under stress. If you keep it in a safe at home that has a dial, that's great, but just understand that in an emergency, in a panic, we tend to forget things under stress, and that combination can be difficult. So just kind of practice some of those things. So, but speaking of storage, Captain, one thing that we see far too common is somebody smashing a window on a car and stealing a gun that was left in the car. That's irresponsible gun ownership. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. That is a clinical definition of irresponsible gun ownership. You're basically inviting somebody, or putting a neon sign on your car saying, "Look what I have here. Go ahead and take it." And again, I think when you're talking about safe transportation, safe storage, even if you're going to store that firearm loaded, which again, that's a personal preference. Lock that thing in the glove box, lock it in the center console, lock it in the trunk, lock it somewhere that somebody can't get a hold of it. Now, I get it. If they break the window, they can still have access. But if they don't see it, maybe they're going to move on to another target.
Yeah, and they also know how long it's going to take. These smash and grab type, they want them to be done in seconds.
Exactly. And again, it's a crime of opportunity. They don't want to have to work any harder than they have to. So again, we preach it. We preach it. Be responsible. Because there are so many people that are getting hurt with firearms right now, and not only adults but children. So those are the things that we want to lessen, and we're trying to do our very best to educate the general public in those thoughts. Get those thoughts in your head right now.
Yeah, and if you're going to have a gun in the home and you have children in the home, there's dozens of ways that you can create a safe environment. All the way from educating the children and talking about them, letting them ask questions, to making sure you have intricate gun safes, that the guns are unloaded, different ways. But Scott, talk about some different options of safes, because some people say, well, I don't want to keep my gun that I use for home protection locked in a safe in the basement or in the garage, because if I need it in an emergency, it's going to be there. So there are lots of different options for different types of safes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge gun safe.
Safes, vaults, storage. Like I said, there's wide variety of different options you have there. Some are stow and go. They make headboards that have compartments that you can reach for a shotgun if that's the weapon of choice. They have biometric locks and safes to do, so it just takes a thumbprint that you can put on there and it opens up and makes your firearm accessible. So again, it's about personal preference. It's what you feel comfortable. Again, education is going to be where I would tend to go down, educate children and stuff. But again,
we see the devastating stories far too often of the young child finding a loaded gun and shooting themselves or somebody else on accident, because we know that the kids are curious. But it just takes one time to leave that gun out somewhere, or you were going to clean it, you set it out, you forgot, you got busy doing something else, and then you left it laying on the bed or something. So gun ownership is a huge responsibility. And if you're thinking about buying and or carrying a gun, make sure you think about all the things that come with that responsibility and all the things that come with potentially using that firearm in an emergency, and what your responsibilities are there. So Scott, we have about 3 minutes left. What this new law, a lot of people think that it's just giving a green light to anybody to carry a gun in the state of Indiana, and that's just not true. And the way that I tell people this, if because of your criminal history you didn't qualify to carry a gun or to get a gun permit on June 30th of 2022, then you don't qualify to carry a gun on July 1st, 2022.
Yes, you're correct.
So it didn't change. The same criteria is still in effect that you would have had to use to get a gun permit, your criminal background. So if you would have been rejected before the law, you can't legally carry it now. And again, if you're interested in looking at the list, you can go online and find it in a lot of
right. In fact,
places.
now there's actually added criteria. So there's two sets of criteria. Some of them bleed into each other, but again, on our website, we've got a list of not only that criteria, but other things to consider when you're again, if you want to purchase a handgun, even as much as should I go out and should I still get a handgun permit?
Yes.
And very quickly, I mean, we're recommending that you do. For a number of different reasons.
Yeah, and we've got about 2 minutes. So I think if you want to be a gun owner, but maybe you're not sure, gosh, do I qualify? Do I fit one of these categories that makes me not a proper person? If you're just not sure, you can apply for a free lifetime gun permit in the state of Indiana and allow us to do that vetting. We'll send you the permit. That permit also gives you some other advantages that you won't have based on our law.
Right. I mean, there's 25 states right now that are open carry, which means there's 25 states that either require a permit. There's one state that requires it only for their residents. But nonetheless, if you're going to be traveling from here to there, you're going to want to know which states those are and what the rules are for transporting, carrying, etc.
Yeah, and a lot of states have reciprocity. If you've gotten that Indiana gun permit, they'll recognize that, giving you the legal right to carry a gun.
Right, absolutely.
So just a few things to keep in mind, but gun permits didn't go away. You certainly can still apply for one. There's a process, and you can find that on the Indiana State Police website at www.in.gov/ISP, or if you just Google Indiana State Police or whatever search engine you use, it'll take you right to it about how to apply for a gun permit.
Right.
So,
right.
We don't know what the future looks like with this law, but certainly in law enforcement, people have a right to carry a gun. We deal with that on a daily basis. Certainly thankful for those that let us know they're carrying a gun when we do encounter them, if we can't see it. But we'll just keep working and doing our best to protect the citizens of Indiana, because that's what our priority is.
Right. And then going back to what Scott said here real quick in the closing moments, education.
Yeah.
Have conversations at home about firearm safety with not only with the adults but with the kids, but also with your neighbors and your friends.
Yeah.
Because again, if you have a firearm in your house, it might behoove just to let somebody know if their kids are coming, or vice versa. But hey, they're locked up. There is no way that they can get a hold of that, because maybe it's biometric.
Yeah, locked and unloaded is
Absolutely
a good way. So I want to thank you guys for coming in. Certainly appreciate all the safety tips. And for more, visit our website.